Hey, what's up? This is Harry from Harry's Situations, and I want to talk to you today about rooftop tents. In particular, why I don't like rooftop tents. I have 3 ground tents in front of me here that I use. All of them together cost less than that rooftop tent behind me. Let me tell you why. If you've cruised Facebook Marketplace, you've probably seen ads for rooftop tents that say only used once. Have you ever stopped to think about that? Clearly, I am not alone in thinking that these are just a fad. And you see them these days on not just Tacomas and Jeeps, but everything from Super Duties to Subarus have rooftop tents on them, it would seem. And I'll confess, I didn't see this trend coming, and I don't really understand it, to be quite honest. I've slept in plenty of rooftop tents of soft shell style, wedge style, hard style, and I don't really care for them. I do think wedge style campers and rooftop tents answer a lot of my concerns, but those tend to be, 1, quite a bit more expensive, and 2, such a small segment of the market. Nearly every tent from this Smitty built to a Tepui tent to a CVT to an ARB Simpson, they're all nearly identical. And those are the tents I'm really talking about today. I mentioned cost, but there's a lot of other factors that make me not a fan of rooftop tents. For one, they're heavy, like well over 100 pounds on the roof of your vehicle, raising your center of gravity. You're gonna have worse aerodynamics, you're gonna get worse mileage, and the tent in the middle here behind me weighs 3 pounds. I fly with it all over the country, out of the country, and I've slept in it all over the place, and it works just as well, if not better. Another thing I don't care for on rooftop tents is they're not mobile. After this tent's deployed, you can't move your vehicle around. So wherever you set up camp is where you have to stay. And I just don't do that often. If I was gonna camp in one place for multiple days, I could see the value, but rarely do I do that. I don't even have one vehicle. I have multiple vehicles, so which one do you even set up the rooftop tent on? You have to decide what vehicle it goes on, and they're not easy to move from vehicle to vehicle. So let me tell you a little bit about the 3 options that I have here behind me and why I prefer them to a rooftop tent. I don't think there's a perfect tent for every situation, and I think there's situations where a rooftop tent is good, but these 3 tents that I have, I use for specific purposes. I know it's in vogue to bag on overlanders if you're a hardcore rock crawler, and honestly there's a lot of stereotypes with hardcore rock crawlers that I think are accurate and things I don't care for. And the same goes for the overlanding community, but I'll be honest, I like to go overlanding too. I like to camp, I like to go and explore new places. I have a freezer fridge, I bring Max Tracks. There are a lot of products in the overlanding market that I like, but the rooftop tent has me scratching my head. As you can see, I have a lot of tents, and I have a lot of vehicles also, but the one thing they have in common is they all ride on Nitto tires. Nitto makes tires in a variety of different sizes and different tread patterns to fit any application. One of the big advantages you hear about rooftop tents, or perceived advantages, is that they're really quick to set up. That hasn't been my experience. You go around the vehicle to take off the straps, you go around the vehicle to unzip the cover, you go around the vehicle to set it up, you go around the vehicle to put on the poles, and I find that actually rather time consuming. By contrast, this cat's eye tent operates just like an umbrella. So you can set it up and take it down in a matter of seconds, literally. You hear that about rooftop tents, but seconds are a measure of time, so I guess if you combine enough of them, you can set up a rooftop tent. But this only takes a few seconds to set up. That's the plus side. It's also fairly roomy. I can stand up in here, not upright, but stand up and put my pants on, put my clothes on in the morning, and plenty of room for 2 or 3 people, 2 people and a dog, and all of our gear inside of here. The cons to this tent are, it's not super well built. It's fairly flimsy, it's not gonna keep you very warm, and it only cost $100, which is actually a pro, but the construction kind of shows that it only cost $100. I like to take this tent with me when I go on trips in my Tracker or my Jeep where I know we're gonna get in late and I don't wanna spend a lot of time fussing with setup. It folds down relatively small, not backpacking tent small, but still small enough to easily fit in a Jeep without taking up too much room. This MSI Advance Pro 2 is around $500, so Expensive for a ground tent, still significantly less than a rooftop tent. You can see it's not real big. I travel with this tent when I'm on my own. I'm sleeping by myself. They call it a two-person tent, but it's really best for one person. The upside is it gets super compact. It only weighs 3 pounds, and this is an actual 4-season tent. There's no mesh here. It's all made of waterproof, windproof material. And I put this tent along with this X-Ped pad and my Marmot down sleeping bag in this dry bag. Plenty of room for other gear as well. I've flown with this and it flies real well. It fits in just about any vehicle, and I just keep this gear together all the time, and I'm ready to go at a moment's notice. I use this Marmot down sleeping bag and this X-Ped Mega Mat in all of these tents. I find the pad in particular is crucial for a good night's sleep. I do have to add that to the time it takes to set up camp. If you have a rooftop tent that includes padding in it, you don't have to inflate a mattress like I do, but I find these pads to be even more comfortable than a rooftop tent pad based on my experience. The features I like about this tent are that it doesn't flap around a lot in the wind, it's relatively light, it's compact, so you don't need a big campsite. When you set it up, you can have a tiny area and you can still set up this tent. It's really quick to set up and easy. The way the poles are designed, you can just stand on one side, slide them in, and you can put the tent up without ever even moving your feet. The downside is it is small. If you have more than one person, you're probably not going to have a good night's sleep in this tent. And it's relatively expensive at $500. But I'd say out of the three, this is my favorite for wheeling and camping out of. This is an ARB Swag. So ARB is an Australian company. The term swag comes from essentially a bivy sack. They started out as these very small, minimalist tents that you would sleep in, and they've gotten bigger and scaled up over time. So this is actually a 2-person swag, and what I like about this is it's super heavy canvas, so it doesn't flap in the wind at all. It's got a rubberized bottom to it, so you don't have to put down a tarp or anything. It's also like a cave in here. It's so dark when you have it closed up, and it keeps you real warm with this canvas as well. The downsides are this costs about $500, and even when it's rolled up, it's gigantic. When I first got this, it came with bedding inside it. It had an egg crate mattress, and it made it super bulky. It didn't really fit in any of my vehicles other than a truck with an empty bed. I've taken out the egg crate. I just use my X-Ped Mega Mat these days, which has made it smaller, but you still need a lot of room to carry this around. It sets up relatively quickly, which is nice, and it's very sturdy, even in the wind, but because of the low height, it is a pain to get in and out of your clothes when you're inside this tent relative to a model that's taller. All of these tents have their advantages and disadvantages, including the rooftop tent. I'm not going to tell you which one to buy. I just want you to consider all the factors and not just the fads when you're making a purchase. So decide how much room you need, what your budget is, what sort of camping you're doing, and how quickly you want to set up camp when you get there when making your purchase, and I'm sure you'll be happy. Are there other factors I didn't consider? Comment below and let us know what you think. Next month, we'll be back rolling on Nittos again with my lightweight tracker when I explain why weight is just so important when going off-road.